Today I will discuss with you, is the Annapurna Circuit in Nepal still worth doing? Hello my hiking friends, it is nice to see you here. So, the Annapurna Circuit trek. When I first had the idea that I wanted to do it, and when I started to search information about it online, one thing that stood up from many blog posts and articles about the trek was that even if the trail itself or the surrounding of the trail is marvelous, the road construction is eating away the trail slowly, thus making the trail less enjoyable to walk, and some even said that it is not worth doing at all. First of all, I want to tackle one issue and the idea that the road construction is a bad thing. In fact, it isn't, because the mountains belong to, most of all, they belong to Nepalese people, because though this Annapurna Massif is a part of a country named Nepal, and the road construction helps to bring those rural communities more together and help those mountain villages to get supplies into the cities. Also, the buses that drive on the road help get children to the schools and they help them get better education. And as Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world, it needs every help it can get in education wise, in an economy wise, so the road construction is a very good thing for the rural communities. And of course, trekkers are one big part of the supply chain, because the mountain villages wouldn't need so many supplies if the trekkers wouldn't trek the trek. I know it is really easy to judge the Nepalese people by building the road. The Nepalese people know what's best for them, and please let's not blame them for ruining the best trek in the world, because in my opinion it is not ruined. The ACAP has done a lot of work with the communities themselves, educating them for using more economically friendly means of cooking foods, and they have been doing all kinds of stuff for the communities themselves. But one thing that the ACAP has done is building alternative routes along the Annapurna trek, so that you could trek the trail itself without going on the car road. And I have to say they have done a pretty good job of it. As the trail itself around Annapurna has been there for many decades, because the trail was formed in past because people used the trail and it was the only reasonable place to get a trail or some kind of road to get into these mountain communities. So it is obvious that once the cars came, the cars started to use the same trails along the river valleys. And what ACAP has done is building alternative trekking routes, mostly on the other side of the valley. Sometimes the alternative roads go above the car roads, but as there is a forest in between them, you basically don't hear the cars. One thing that I have to say about the alternative trails is that a lot of times they are not as straight as the car roads. They go up and down more often, so they are harder to trek. So what I would suggest is to take time when you want to trek the Annapurna Circuit. Sometimes they take a little detour that is totally worth the detour, but it takes a bit more time. So in my opinion, take the time to hike the trail, so you will enjoy it much more than just speeding through it on the car road. Many blog posts and articles up in the internet suggest for you to skip ahead with a jeep as far as you can go and then start trekking, because more into the mountains, more higher you go, the less traffic you will see. But I wouldn't suggest that, because for me one of the greatest days was at the end of the trek, what people suggest skipping altogether, and of course at the beginning of the trek, where you could skip on with a bus or with a jeep. So these startings of the trail were one of my most favorite days, and they have awesome alternative routes, and I really just suggest you to take these routes and trek the whole trail as a whole, or as much as you can. Many trekkers finish their trek altogether after Yomsom. They arrive there and then they will fly out. There is an airport in Yomsom, but I will warn you, if you are trekking on high season, we tried to book some plane tickets when we were in Kathmandu before our trek and we couldn't manage it. All the tickets were booked. Many people also take the bus from Yomsom and ride it basically to Pokhara, or take a jeep. But I have to say, if we are talking about car roads in Nepal, then they aren't exactly like normal car roads that we have in our countries. They are these bumpy, holy dirt roads on the mountain sides, so it is really common to have landslides on the road, so you can't move forward. Sometimes it happens and then you have to walk forward because the cars can't pass, or the car trip is just really awful. We had to take the bus from Tatopani to Pokhara, and for the first 2 hours when we were on this bumpy mountainside road, we were just all the time, we were like on a dance party, because like we jumped around and the ride was really uncomfortable. And if you have to think that you have to drive all the way from Yomsom to Tatopani or to Pokhara, it is crazy. You are much more better off trekking the trail. So my key advice here is take the time to do as much of the trail as possible and use as less as jeep or bus transportation as possible, because it is not pleasant, but the trail is. When we trekked the Annapurna Circuit, me and my mom, we had some days when we had to walk on the roads, and yes, they weren't pleasant days. But I have to say that the other days that we could spend on this marvelous landscape, between the small mountain villages, between the forests, and in the upper parts in these kinds of alpine environments, they were so beautiful and awesome that we totally forgot about these not so pleasant car road trekking days. When you are in Kathmandu or Pokhara, just find a map that has new trekking trails marked on it, and usually they have this mark on it. So you have a map that shows the traditional way of walking, and also it will mark the alternative routes. So that's one way to know where the alternative trails are. Also, this is the book that basically goes with this trail map of the new Annapurna trails, and this just describes the alternative routes and the main routes really nicely, so you can take this with you on the trail and follow it. Unfortunately, you can't buy it anywhere else, just you can buy it in Nepal. I found the 2011 version of this book online. If you search the title here, you will probably find it also. But in Kathmandu, I was able to buy the 2016 version, so it's an updated version. If you are using the Lonely Planet Trekking in the Nepal Himalaya book, it's a great book to plan your trip. But if you find the Annapurna Circuit pages here, these maps here do not always describe the alternative ways. This is a 2015 year book. There are GPS files out in the internet also with alternative routes on it, so you can download the maps and use your phone as a GPS device. I did that a lot and I didn't have any problems finding the alternative routes. They are really well marked on the trail itself, but I have to warn you, if something has been written in here, it might not work anymore on the trail and vice versa. So just be mindful of the trail marks on the nature and also ask from the local people where the trail is, because when the people are living in the mountains where the trail passes, they know exactly where the trail is. And if you are a person with a backpack on, they understand even without understanding English or without you speaking Nepalese, you can communicate and they will just tell you where the trail goes. Yeah, so Nepalese people are really friendly and they are really willing to help you. Just be polite and they will help you. The Annapurna Circuit trail is totally worth doing because it is still one of the most scenic trails in the world. It is really comfortable to trek it because you have tea houses or lodges dotting the whole way, so you can sleep in a proper bed, eat nice warm meal in breakfast, lunch and dinner. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you gained some new knowledge from it. If you have some ideas or questions about the circuit or the Annapurna trail, leave them in the comments below. I will answer them and maybe even do a video about them if I have more to say than just I can fit in one comment. So yeah, thank you for watching. Go for a hike because life is so much better in hiking shoes, and I will see you already next time. Okay, bye!